We've been talking about media influence and social comparison. And one of the things that often results in is body dissatisfaction. And so today I want to talk about the two most common types of body dissatisfaction that we see overall, but especially in the collegiate population. So this is actually what I do. So when I was in graduate school, I actually studied juries and alcoholism and law students. And then in my first job post PhD, and this was over 20 years ago, mind you, I had a student come to my office sobbing. She was an athlete. She was on the gymnastics team and she was on the cheerleading squad. This was not at Boise State. This was long ago before I came to Boise State. And I asked her what was wrong. And she said, my coach said I have to lose 10 pounds in a week or I cannot be on the top of the pyramid anymore in my cheer squad. And looking at her, I was mortified and appalled and all of those things because she was solid muscle, not an ounce of fat on her, and did not need to lose weight at all. But her coach felt she was actually too muscular and too bulky. And so that began my now over 2-decade journey into researching the factors that influence how we feel about our bodies, our weight, our face, of all-encompassing physical appearance that we call in the literature body dissatisfaction. So what we've learned as I've studied this over the past 20 years is that body dissatisfaction has become normative in U.S. collegiate populations. So recent studies suggest that 90% of women and 80 to 85, actually the latest study that came out, 80 to 85% of college men report some level of body dissatisfaction, weight dissatisfaction, dissatisfaction with something about their appearance. So it's kind of, you're much more likely, unfortunately, to find someone who is dissatisfied than not at this point. So hence the normative. So for 20 years, I've been studying the factors that influence body dissatisfaction. And we've talked about some of those in this course: family, peer influence, social comparison, media. And in research, when I first started, we really focused on wanting to be thinner, wanting to lose weight. But around the time I started studying body dissatisfaction, we began to discover that it wasn't quite that simple. That, and again, 20 years ago, we had a lot of men who wanted to bulk up and women who wanted to lean out. And so we ended up coining these terms drive for thinness and drive for muscularity. But as research has progressed and time has marched on, we've actually realized that it's not quite that simple. There are plenty of men who want to be thinner and also more muscular. And there are also plenty of women, actually, who want to be thin and toned. Maybe not bulky, but definitely toned. And that's kind of the societal standard that we see in the media today, is lean and toned. So to just kind of take it back to the drawing board, what is drive for thinness? These are kind of, if you Google or get on Instagram, used to be, you could Google hashtag pro-Anna, drive for thinness, something like that, and you would find images like this. And a lot of the social media channels have gotten better at stopping that because we found that the pro-anorexia images really did encourage unhealthy weight loss and exercise behaviors to achieve a level of thinness that was just not healthy. But these are the kinds of images that you still find when you're looking at the quote-unquote ideal thin body build in the United States. So one for women, one for men. How do we assess this? There are numerous ways that we can assess body dissatisfaction. It's your discrepancy from how you want to look. So we call that discrepancy from the ideal. And we can ask that via survey. If you took Psych 101 at Boise State, you may have participated in one of my research studies. I often have something called a drive for thinness scale and a drive for muscularity scale. It could just be survey questions where we ask you things like, I want to lose weight, my desire to bulk up, that kind of thing. It could also be a line drawing, which we have here. And so this is one of the line drawings for it's called the fatness to thinness scale. And it's all based on weight. So level of thinness to level of overweight or obesity. And we have you circle, if you're male, you get the male scale. If you're female, you get the female scale. At this point, they are designed for those who identify predominantly female, predominantly male. So you would get whichever scale you identify with. And you pick where you are on that scale, on that number scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at the bottom. And then we ask you, okay, what do you want to look like? And so what we're looking for is a discrepancy between the number you circle for how you think you look and the number you circle for how you want to look. And there's often, in both men and women, a difference with either wanting to be larger or wanting to be smaller. Either way, it's considered body dissatisfaction because it's a discrepancy from the ideal. So we've talked before in this class about the fact that by age 3, children know in the US that thin is quote unquote good and fat is quote unquote bad. And so what we're beginning to see now is that by age 10, 80% of girls have already been on a weight loss diet. For boys, it tends to happen about 2 years later. Just difference in puberty levels. We tend to see body dissatisfaction developing about 2 years earlier in girls than boys. But regardless, by about age 9 or 10, we start to see body dissatisfaction emerge quite a bit in children, with 35% of kids age 9, 38 at age 10 selecting ideal figures that were smaller than their real figures. When we look at gender differences, we're also starting to see, for boys anyway, sometimes they are choosing a larger figure already by age, again, 9, 10. So body dissatisfaction beginning to emerge. Move to adulthood. We talked about this last week with the media lectures. Dove has a number of campaigns, including the Real Beauty campaign. You watched some of those videos last week. There are others out there if you want to get on YouTube and Google Dove Real Beauty campaign. Dove's point is that we are not realistic at all about what we think we look like. And most of us, as a result of that body dissatisfaction and ingrained belief that we're not as good as we should be on multiple levels, not just physically speaking, that we have an inaccurate perception of what we look like. And so if someone were to draw us, oftentimes we wouldn't even recognize ourselves because we perceive ourselves as a lot uglier, fatter, whatever, insert adjective, than we actually are. So drive for muscularity or drive for tone is another scale. And again, we can assess that with questions that ask about how often you use weights, if you're on steroids, if you're trying to bulk up, if you think you would look better with more muscle, if you're trying to lean out and have that kind of lean and toned look. Drive for muscularity has been a survey out there for about 20 years at this point. So again, just kind of give you an idea of what the media tells us we should look like, with male on the left, female on the right. So lean and toned, so as opposed to the very skinny with no muscle that we saw the drive for thinness. Drive for muscularity is adding that bulk. It's lean muscle mass, but it's still adding bulk. So definition, you can see shoulders, you can see pecs, you can see abs, you can see arm definition, leg definition. We just see the torso shots on these, but both men and women. The idea is that our ideal right now in society is to be toned, right? Muscular for men, toned for women. And again, if we wanted to assess that via kind of the line drawings, here's something you may see on surveys if you're not just asked questions on a Likert scale, where we have, again, we're looking for this discrepancy from the ideal. Where do you think you are? This is the thinness to muscularity scale. Where would you like to be? And we're looking again for the number, a difference in the numbers that you choose for what you think you are and what you think you want to be. So regardless of how we assess body dissatisfaction, again, in the college population, we've got about 90% of women who are unsatisfied with some aspect of their appearance, about 80 to 85% of men. those numbers are not getting any better, right? A lot of social comparison, a lot of social media has really made that worse because we're internalizing images that have been filtered. We don't know that because you can't always tell that a filter's been used on social media. And again, as we talked about with media influence, it only takes 30 minutes of exposure. A lot of people spend more than 30 minutes per day on social media looking at these images that make them feel bad about themselves. So again, just be conscious of your habits. And if you're doing something that's making you feel bad about yourself, stop doing it, right? Change how you're utilizing social media, change who you're following. It can make a big difference. So my last caveat is that a new scale has recently emerged. So we had Drive for Muscularity, we had Drive for Thinness. We now have a new scale called Drive for Leanness that tries to combine the two together. It's too new for us to know how effective it is and what kind of prevalence rates we're seeing with it. But if you follow my lab research, that's actually one of the things I'm studying right now. So more to come on that. We'll see if that Drive for Leanness it's different than Drive for Thinness and the Drive for Muscularity. So more to come on that.